Peace. This is King Noble Black Supremacy. With this particular video, I want to talk about Kwanza, or I want to present Kwanza as evidence of African American supremacy. There's lots of evidence of African American supremacy. What's even greater is, this is my confession of not only being a black supremacist, but also an African American supremacist. Not the only one. There are plenty of African American supremacist groups. A lot of so-called black or melanated groups, if you look at their information, you'll find out that they're African American supremacists. You'll find that with the Hebrew Israelites, us being the chosen people of God, they're African American supremacists. Basically, African Americans are the tribe of Judah, the Moors. We are basically African American supremacists. The Moors are. Plenty of other groups. You find that out. You find that vein of African American supremacy. But I'm a confessed African American supremacist. I don't water it down, or I'm not apologetic, or it's not hidden in fables and myth. I'm just being absolutely clear with it. An African American supremacy. Now, to me, black and African American is the same thing. African American just speaks specifically to our geographical location of melanated people in America. When you say African Americans, you're talking about the Africans that, by way of this transatlantic slave trade, exist on this landmass that we call America. Specifically, Northern America, the West. We're talking about African American supremacists, people on that land. Some of them claim to be indigenous. Many of them realize themselves as being the byproducts of the transatlantic slave trade. Either way you want to look at it, the people on this body of land that we call North America. I confess to being acknowledging the supremacy of those people, not as only being representing blacks or melanated people as the supreme race, but even within that race of black people, that African Americans are the supremest of them all. So look at all black people, creating hierarchy, and you'll find the African Americans are the supremest. I'll prove that. Not only are we supremacists, we are the supremest. Let's be clear on this. Kwanza proves that to me. Now, for many different reasons. I'll go in on that. For one, now Africans in South Africa and other parts of Africa are practicing Kwanza. Something invented by Maulana Karenga right here in America, in California, Long Beach, California. Maulana Karenga came up with this very deep, intellectual and prolific social engineer. You cannot deny the brilliance of Maulana Karenga. It cannot be denied that he socially engineered the future of the African world with Kwanza. So now you have a people that's supposed to be lost of their culture, went through everything, stripped of everything. Now those people awakening to themselves in the most ancient way, now reawakening African people in the diaspora to their roots and who they are. The word Karenga is similar to the word Sankofa, going back to your roots, going back to the source. So when Maulana Karenga created Kwanza, he took all African people back to their source, back to their roots, back to what it's really about. Not capitalism, colonization, neo-colonialism. He taking them right back to their roots with Kwanza. African American, taking the African world back to its roots. African Americans are Pan-Africanism. That's what makes us supremer than all other Africans. We are the embodiment of Pan-Africanism. By us not having no home to trace back to, by us not being able to identify ourselves with any particular part of Africa, any particular tribe or group or place. We are all of Africa, embodied in each and every individual. We're every African nation in one. We are Pan-African. Africans can be Pan-Africanist, but Black Americans are Pan-African. We acknowledge all of Africa as who we are. The whole Afrocentric movement and the whole African identity movement was the melanated people in America identifying themselves with Africa, bottom line. We are Pan-African. We need a United States of Africa where all of Africa is united and brought together as one nation. And they all acknowledge themselves as one people and create one kind of currency, one government, one language that will become so powerful that Africa will become the rulers of the world again because of that type of unification. Well, when I tell you that it's already unified in the African American, there's evidence to show it. That Africa is united in the hearts of the African American. It's already unified. It's already one country, already one language, already one nation, already one culture. You cannot tell a Black American, an African American, anything other than that. When they see Africa, they see it as one place, even though it is the largest continent in the world, and the United States of America goes into it 3 times. To them, it is a very small, tight-knit, and interwoven place of Black love and Black unity, Black solidarity, and Black independence. That's what exists in the mind of the African American when it comes to Africa. So the future, or the quintessence of a unified Africa, is thriving in the blood of the African American. We're probably all tribes mixed, different tribes, all mixed up in each and every one of us. So we are a unified Africa. We are Pan-African. We're not Pan-Africanist. We are Pan-Africanists. We're all in a pan together. Now, we're also supreme because we have survived the worst atrocity through this transatlantic slave trade, through slavery, chattel slavery, everything we have went through under white supremacy in this country. We have survived it. So we are the supreme stock, the supreme DNA strand of all African people. The ability for them to endure and survive whatever is to come and visit them in Africa. We are the futures of that. We are the proof of their survival. We are the evidence. We are the part of them that will and would survive anything, which makes us supreme. Only the supreme survive. Only the strong survive. And we are the strongest. We are the strongest, and there's evidence of that. We're tried and true, which makes us supreme in them. So we are Pan-African because we are unification of many different tribes in one human being. And our mindset cannot get off the channel of a unified Africa, of seeing Africa as one. We don't see tribes, cultures, traditions, languages. We see Africa as one, and we identify with it as one. So it is one in our mind, and as it is in our mind, so shall it be on earth. As it is in heaven, so shall it be on earth. So eventually Africa will be revealed as it is seen in the mind of the average African American. So the supremest state that Africa can ever exist in exists in the mind of the African American. A unified Africa. In the average conscious African American, not just that Black leader, Kwame Nkrumah, or Mugabe, or this or that Black leader, Gaddafi. It's in the mind of every Afrocentric and every Black conscious person in America. They see the same thing. Where only a handful of Africans can really connect with a unified Africa on the motherland, or have come out and spoke in such way. So, we are also supreme because of our cultural influence. Yeah. Our cultural influence defines the world. Not only do it define African people diasporically, it defines the world. Look at hip-hop. Everybody start mimicking and becoming like hip-hop, and all of them start to liken themselves to African Americans. Every Black person from the UK to Africa to everywhere you find them is mimicking themselves and styling themselves after African American culture, which you call hip-hop. So we are the most influential melanated people in the world. Next to the Jamaicans. We're the most influential culture of people in the world. Our music has created the world culture, and the universal perception of the melanated man has been created by our culture, hip-hop, and our music, and our swag, our energy. This is a fact. So that happened with hip-hop. Now Kwanza. Kwanza redefining Africa. Kwanza going back home and unifying Africa, making Africa one again. Cultural supremacy. We're taking all the scattered, divided, separated tribes, people, and lands and bringing them together under one African spiritual reality, one ancestral remembrance. Kwanza, 7 principles to unify all African people around the world. Mind of an African American, Maulana Karinga, right here in the United States of America. The African American is supreme. He has many different ways of saying it, from the 5%er, from the Nubian to the Hebrew Israelites, to the Moorish American, many different ways of saying, I am supreme. I self, Lord, and Master. I stimulate all life and matter. I self, law, and master. Many different ways of saying it. But it is being said and it is obvious. Kwanza, evidence of African American supremacy. We are Umoja. The average conscious black man in America is Umoja. We are that unity. We are the embodiment of that unity. Yeah, we need to work on all the other principles. That's coming. Kwanza, evidence of African American supremacy. Every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess to African American supremacy. And they're going to have to recognize and realize that the ancient God has returned and is in America. King Noble Black Supremacy. They're coming into that advent. That's why a black president was so significant, that it affected the world, that we had one black president in the belly of this beast, just affected the confidence and the charisma and the morale of African people all over the world. One black president, one African American president. Look at the civil rights movement and the effect that it had over apartheid and the consciousness of black Americans fighting against oppression, how it has affected worldwide oppression of melanated people all over the world. And we're the only African people that is defeating this beast right here in his own home, right here at his own territory. And we ain't going nowhere. And he ain't going nowhere. We're beating him right here. We're beating this devil right here in his own land, and we stand right here with him, beating him. And making progress, making him respect us, making him honor us, thus honor African people all over the world. And all other minorities are coming over here just based on the battles and victories that African Americans won, to stage their battles, to come over here as minorities, to have rights, human rights, and to have respect. They're using the same narrative that was invented in African Americans' mind out of their struggle for freedom and liberation. African American supremacy. Every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess. We're coming to that point now, but you needed the African American supremacist. You needed the black supremacist to manifest himself and incarnate himself on earth as King Noble Black Supremacy, to be the fulfillment of African American supremacy. All your other teachers and leaders was myths and fables and biblical and poetic. Now we're in a time of total rawness, total directness. We're in a moment of total fulfillment of African American supremacy, total fulfillment of black supremacy. That's the moment we're in right now, where we rise and are exalted to rulership as a people, where we take the wheel. That's the time we're in right now. And you had a fake person who Obama who the world recognized as transformation and liberation, but he was just managing white supremacy. Your real Messianic leader represents the end of white supremacy and the beginning of black rulership, and that's King Noble Black Supremacy. And all nations of people and all tribes of African people will have to follow suit and have to humble themselves and honor that the ancestors are returning and those who are away. The ancestors are rising up again in America. The ancestors are waking up right here. See, in Africa, a lot of times they want what people have in America, and they're distracted by the materialism and the lights, glamours, glitters, and golds of American propaganda. But blacks in America, we see exactly what's going on, so we only focused on the ancestors. We only focused on returning back to supreme black God consciousness, waking up to the totality of who we are and becoming rulers on earth and setting the earth back where it needs to be at. That's all we focused on. We know this illusion of these smoke screens, this Disney World, this Maya, this illusion that you call America. We're clear on that, so we're not distracted by that. We're only focused on the ancestral realm. And we're coming forth by night and by day. So now you're in a time where the Supreme Being is with you now. The fulfillment, the complete embodiment of the realization of African American supremacy and global black supremacy, global African supremacy. I had to bring that to you. It's King Noble Black Supremacy. Join my website, www.kingnobleblacksupremacy.com. Donate and don't hate.